Hey everyone, Ivan Blueco here. Today, let's do another one-shot DBZ What If story. This will be Dragon Ball Z What If Goku trained on Yardrat with Piccolo and Gohan before the Android saga. So, things would go normally until Trunks came in and he told them that there are gonna be some powerful androids that will defeat everybody and make the world go into ruin. In this timeline, because Piccolo knows exactly what happened, he would train with Goku and Gohan, but he would instead talk about how they need an extra boost and a place that they can train even further to learn more skills and abilities. Goku would talk about Yardrat and talk about the amazing skills he could have learned, but only learned teleportation because he wasn't there that long. Piccolo decides, that's where we should be training. Gohan would learn a lot more as well. And while they mentioned how they wanted to train in space, if they told Chi-Chi, she would be completely against it. So, but because Goku can teleport, this would be very easy. Now at first they would go to King Kai's planet to get the coordinates for Yardrat. And once Goku has the coordinates, he would take Piccolo and Gohan to Yardrat. Also thinking that, what if Dr. Gero is still scanning our data? And this would be a good way to, not be found out, not scanned, and not, give the android more power. Goku would take, Piccolo and Gohan, and they would be on Yardrat. Now, we see in Super that there's extra techniques and abilities that the group can learn, and how powerful Vegeta got in between his training. So this training would be, very beneficial. Gohan would gain Gohan and Piccolo would be also gain those abilities. Piccolo would learn gigantification, which would be very helpful compared to his gigantification because it would be a boost in power. Gohan learning teleportation and force spirit vision, as well as Goku learning all these abilities in these 3 years would be a massive boost to all their powers. Now things would change in this story. Piccolo, while being way more powerful, would, change a lot of the Cell Saga. But Gohan, I feel, would become a Super Saiyan because he'd be getting a way better, training session, and knowing how the future is going to be, would need to push himself even further. And thanks to being, on a different planet all the time, coming back home just to, sleep and everything like that, and then going back to train, Gohan would, unlock Super Saiyan early. Goku, I feel, would be a grade 2 Super Saiyan because of all the training he's done. Now, Vegeta wouldn't know what's going on because he was just training in the gravity chamber, just pushing his limits. And every time they train off planet. So nothing would change with anybody else. Now we get into the time skip and Cell Saga. First things first is Goku would still get the heart virus, so he would be taken out of the story early on. But since he was stronger, he was able to defeat 19 much sooner, leaving Dr. Gero to run away and release the androids. Because Piccolo and Gohan are way more powerful, they would be able to do a lot more damage against the androids, and because 16 won't fight because Goku is not here, we would see 18 and 17 facing off against everybody in the cast. Gohan would not be as strong as even Trunks yet because while more powerful and Force Spirit Vision is a very powerful ability, they're androids, so it wouldn't work on them, leaving Piccolo and Gohan defeated. The android would still leave, but they would be a lot more defensive about how these guys are a lot more powerful. So they would still take their sweet time and probably not cause as much damage because they would be hunted down. Piccolo's shocked that he even with that power jump, they still wouldn't be able to gain as much power. So he him and Gohan teleport to Goku immediately to go find see if he's doing okay. Then Piccolo would think, I need a power boost to help me defeat the androids, and this is where Kami comes in. He would go to the lookout and find Kami, tell him that we need to fuse because we need to stop the androids, and I was really close in defeating the androids. Kami in this timeline would see that Piccolo had gained a lot more power and was like, super close in defeating the androids, and he would like, eventually just, hand over his body so they can do their fusion. I would think Piccolo would unlock his potential if they went to like Namek, but this Piccolo like would already be really powerful and wouldn't need that. Now Piccolo combined with like Kami and Nail and all the yardrat training would be like even more powerful. He'd probably be like, his hyperbolic time chamber self training level, like which is a really high level, able to take on the Cell Juniors. So he would be able to watch the androids. So at first, he would go find out what like Cell's doing, because this is early on where Cell has just started absorbing people, because Piccolo would have gotten all the information from Kami, because the androids were not as much of a threat in this timeline because they just barely escaped, so they need more time to recover. Goku, Goku would still be recovering, so Gohan would be taking care of him, and because they wouldn't need Bulma's ship, they could just teleport around because Gohan knows how to teleport. Piccolo would sense the power of, Cell, and sense a bunch of people disappearing, and would teleport to the area and find Cell. This Cell would be, way weaker, and be, an easier opponent to handle, because it's, Piccolo is way more powerful. Cell would try, every single move, but when he's figured out, Piccolo would just defeat him by absorbing his energy with Force Spirit Vision and then blasting every bit of him away, leaving him, nothing, because he thinks this is just another android and it won't be as much of a problem because he's weaker than the androids currently. Now, when the androids Now, Piccolo, defeating, Cell, still thinking the androids are the bigger threat, would teleport to Kame House to see how everyone's doing. This is where 17, 18, and 16 would appear, asking if Goku's home, to which Piccolo, again, would, take them to another island to train, to, fight. Gohan would want to go as well, but Gohan isn't ready for the fight yet because he's not, strong enough. So we go to Piccolo facing off against 17 and 18, while Trunks and Vegeta are still waiting to see. Vegeta is still ashamed of how weak he is, and Trunks has no ability to help. Piccolo would honestly destroy the androids easily. 17 would fight him in a one-on-one, and Piccolo would be taking him on way easier, and eventually just destroy him. 18 and 16 would be shocked that 17 is gone, and they would rush Piccolo. Now, Piccolo is way stronger in this timeline, but he is honestly he is exhausted from his battles with both Cell and 17. So I feel he would lose this fight until Tien comes in and holds off the androids with his tri-beam. His Neo Tri-Beam to keep Piccolo from getting hurt, to give Piccolo enough time to teleport away. But this would leave Tien exhausted on the floor, and they're more mad about what Piccolo's done, so they'd want to head back to Kame House. Now with 16 halfway destroyed and 18 very damaged, they'd have no chance against Goku, who's just recovered from his heart virus. Goku would see that he wouldn't need the hyperbolic time chamber training and head off to face off against the androids. 16 would try and explode on Goku immediately, but because he's a lot weaker and already damaged, it would be not as much of a big deal. And then 18 would be pretty much the only one left, and Goku would decide that to finish this, because he doesn't know Krillin had a crush on her, and use Grade 2 and just destroy 18. Now that's the entirety of the Cell Saga, but let's add a little extra fun and add 13, 14, and 15. Let's say that after 18 was defeated, there's a special signal that gets activated that releases the other androids. Goku wouldn't know this and would still take everyone to the hyperbolic time chamber. This is where, Vegeta and Trunks would go in first, because Vegeta is way weaker than both, Piccolo, Goku, and even Gohan. And they would go in first, and this is where Vegeta would still learn, grades 2 and 3, same with Trunks. But because there's no one to face, they just, sit there and wait their turn. But you hear on the news that like explosions are going on in the cities. It becomes like 13, 14, and 15 have been awakened. So Vegeta thinks perfect. There's more action. He would take Trunks and they would go down there to face the androids. Now while Goku and Gohan take their training, like they're training way more seriously because they're a lot more powerful and Gohan is already a Super Saiyan. Their training would be like maximized almost instantly. In this timeline, Gohan would reach Super Saiyan 2 in his training, and Goku, with a lot more training with his son, would teach him how to master it. And Goku would be like mastered Super Saiyan, but way more powerful. He still wouldn't hit Super Saiyan 2 yet, but Gohan would definitely, and this would like raise their training up even further. Now on Earth, this is where Vegeta and Trunks like have their time to shine. They would easily defeat like 14 and 15, taking them on because their movie selves aren't as strong as the canon versions of Vegeta and Trunks in this timeline. And then 13 comes in and like fuses with the other androids to become Super 13, and then they face off against like Super Vegeta and Trunks. Now Trunks and Vegeta, like, they have no reason to be playing around with him like Cell. Like, they did let him like fuse, and I feel this would be like a very close fight for like Vegeta, because 13 would be a way more powerful foe, leading to like Super Vegeta doing everything he can, only to go into his final flash and defeat like 13 while exhausting himself just barely, and Trunks like finishing off the job if like 13 even survived that, finally ending like the android saga. But there still would be like problems with Vegeta and conflicts, because when like Vegeta thinks he's the strongest, only to find out that Goku mastered Super Saiyan and Gohan is already above that level, finding a Super Saiyan 2 level, grade 5 as some people call it. Vegeta would ask to spar with Goku, and this would be so one-sided. Like, Goku would defeat him instantly. Now Gohan would think we need some new Dragon Balls, and Piccolo would ask him, well, what about Namek? Let's go there. Now Piccolo, seeing that he's falling behind, he'd offer to go to Namek and think it would be easier for me to convince them to help us out. He would teleport to Namek, find the Namekians and Dende, and tell them we need a guardian on Earth, and Dende, since he likes a Piccolo because he also has Nail, would offer, and they would take him back. But before Piccolo goes, they offer to unlock his potential. Piccolo thinks he's already more or less powerful enough to handle things, but since Piccolo's more pragmatic, he would see that this would be useful, because it would be there's future threats that may come to Earth, and he needs to be prepared, and he doesn't trust Vegeta, who is honestly a problem, because he lost to Goku, so he would have that inner rage inside of him. So Piccolo would to gather the Dragon Balls, and a Purunga would unlock his potential, boosting his power significantly. So taking Dende, and they would be unlocking his dragons, and there would be a time skip. This Piccolo would be way more powerful thanks to unlocking his potential. I feel he would only unlock Yellow Piccolo, because Orange Piccolo was a major desire and major power he needed later. Goku and Gohan would be having a lot more training time together, so Piccolo would be joining them. And this Gohan's already way more powerful. He would probably master Super Saiyan 2 thanks to Goku eventually unlocking Super Saiyan 2. And just like Trunks and Super, their Super Saiyan 2 would be as powerful, if not more powerful, than Super Saiyan 3. Vegeta would eventually unlock Super Saiyan as well, but because his training is much different, he's not going to master it. It'll just be the same level as the Majin Vegeta itself. Piccolo would be a lot more powerful in this timeline and would be the strongest, but he's not using his yellow form yet because he wants to save that for an actual threat. Now, a lot of the story would go about the same way, besides Gohan being a lot more powerful and a lot more confident in himself because he still has his father in his life. Goten would be way more powerful because he'd have Goku in his life, and Goten would be more prone to training. So I feel he would not master. he would have mastered Super Saiyan like very early because he's already able to use it because of like Chi-Chi helping him with that. And so he would defeat like Trunks in the tournament because Vegeta again is like feeling like he's inferior to Goku and Gohan, and would like just focus more on himself rather than his son. When we get to like the two like Supreme Kai and Kibito, Piccolo would be the same exact way because he's a lot more powerful and a lot more in touch with his like mythical side. He would like still be respectful, leading to like Gohan still being like having his power zapped. So when a lot of those events go the same way, we would get into like Vegeta still not turning into a Majin because he was so far behind. So he would face off against Goku. Goku knowing that he'd have to take on Majin Vegeta, would use his Yardratian powers to defeat Vegeta by zapping away his power, even if they were even, which Goku's more powerful than Vegeta in this timeline, leaving Vegeta drained and defeated without causing any major damage to the city because he would have fought him in the wasteland by teleporting him away. Piccolo would have defeated Dabura outside because he wouldn't have been caught, being way more powerful, and even using his yellow form for a split moment to just blow him away. Gohan gave more power to Babidi, which would release Majin Buu, leading to a more powerful, an early Majin Buu fight. But because, Piccolo and Gohan are there and are actually smart, they would use, Force Spirit Vision and see that, Majin Buu can be split up, releasing the Kais, weakening Buu, leaving, the shriveled up Evil Buu and Fat Buu rather than Kid Buu, blowing away the Evil Buu, leaving only, the remains of, Fat Buu and the Kais left over within there, defeating Babidi and ending Buu Saga. This is a more short version of Buu Saga, but it would still be an easy time because Piccolo is very pragmatic. Now Supreme Kai sees that their powers are strong, but physically they were still weaker than Buu. So he would offer for Gohan and Piccolo to come train with them in Supreme Kai's planet, while Goku would want to train there too, just because he wants to help out, get stronger, learn their abilities. Now, since they already have teleportation, they can come and go anytime. So we would go to skip over to Daima, after they've done their training. Gohan would have a more powerful version of Mystic, and again, he'd still be training. So this Mystic would be high level, super level. Piccolo would finally unlock and master his yellow form, not orange completely yet, and Goku would be gain Super Saiyan 3, but because he would have way better mastery of it because the Super Saiyan 2 is way stronger, it would be a way more powerful power. Now we get into Daima, and Daima would go about the same way, only that Piccolo is way more powerful and Goku is already way more powerful, leaving to Super Saiyan 4 Daima to be unlocked sooner in story and actually defeating Goma, while Piccolo is already there and able to defeat Goma himself as well if need be, because he was already powerful as a child, so this wouldn't change anything. So we move on to Super and we get into the Beerus fight, and now Goku is way more powerful in this timeline, but Piccolo is even further along because Piccolo is already on the steps of unlocking Orange form. First, Beerus would fight against Goku, and Gohan would be still training, but he wouldn't be as powerful. Goku would use Super Saiyan 4 and try and fight Beerus. It would do a lot better. I would say he'd be 1/4 the strength of Super Saiyan God, because this Goku is a lot more powerful, training with really powerful fighters Piccolo and Gohan. Without they don't have fusion because Goku never died in this timeline, but this would still be fine. No, Beerus would still win, but he would see that Goku was a match for him, and while not a Super Saiyan God, he still had a good time. Next we go to Piccolo on Earth, and this is where Piccolo would do his Piccolo and Gohan would team up fighting against Beerus, and Beerus would actually have to try. He would go Orange, Gohan would go Mystic, and they would be facing off against Beerus and doing a lot of work. Beerus would need to use a lot more of his true power, like I would say 30%, and be dealing with them both. Gohan would be unlocking more of his mystic power to keep up, while Piccolo would start gaining like an orange hue of his like skin, turning into orange Piccolo to deal like a massive damage to Beerus, because this was a sneak attack. Beerus would be shocked but excited that they're gaining more power as they're fighting, so he would be unlocking more of his power, up to 60% I would say, and would defeat them. Now, Piccolo and Gohan aren't weak in this time. Like, it's just that Beerus is just like so powerful, and his high powers and everything left them unable to counter. He still wants to face off against the Super Saiyan God, so this is where they get the Dragon Balls and then wish for a Super Saiyan God, find out everything about what they need, and Goku becomes Super Saiyan God in this timeline. But with Super Saiyan 4, he'd become like a Super Saiyan 4 God, face off against Beerus at 80, 90%, and just, it would be a wild transformation and fight with Primal Saiyan power and Super Saiyan God power mixed together, which would basically be Super Saiyan Blue in this timeline. Now, it would be a close fight, way closer than Beerus could imagine, but he had a great time. Now, Beerus would loves the fact that there's these powerful beings on Earth, and decides I'll come back again, and with the delicious food and everything like that. Now we get into Resurrection F. Vegeta, had to humble himself, beg training from Whis, because Whis comes over with Bulma. So he would gain his Super Saiyan God, but he'd still be way lower level than Goku, who's already has training with Piccolo and Gohan. So this Goku would still be way more powerful, because he'd already had the Super Saiyan God ritual on him plus Super Saiyan 4. So he'd be Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4, while Vegeta would go down the God path. Now, Vegeta would know that he needs more power, so I feel in this timeline, he would try and go down the path of Ultra Ego sooner, after unlocking Super Saiyan Blue, instead of going Mastered Blue, because that's not a power he wants. He wants to have more destructive power. We get to Resurrection F, and this would not be difficult. Piccolo and Gohan would defeat Frieza. It would actually be Piccolo, because he still wants revenge after what he's done to the Namekians. So he would go orange and he'd go base on final form and just clobber him. But Golden Frieza versus Yellow Piccolo, and that would be a really close fight. So Piccolo would need to finally pull out Orange Piccolo and just one shot him, much like the Gammas, and just to completely wipe Frieza off the face of the earth. Gohan sees that, they're powerful and they're able to deal with this. But Piccolo said he's going to make sure he keeps training. And, Gohan's okay, Because Gohan would be this very buff, smart guy, just like Clark Kent, Superman. And it would be and Goku and Vegeta would have sensed the fight on Earth, but saw that they dealt with it, so everything was fine. So they continued their training with ease. Now we get into Universe 6 tournament, and this would be way easier, because they can absorb everyone's powers and deal with things easier. Piccolo would actually be the one to deal with Frost, deal with Kaba, deal with Magetta. This is where he'd get, and I feel he'd lose to Hit, because he'd have to go through a gauntlet of tough fighters. So Vegeta would go up next, and he would become he would go Super Saiyan Blue and defeat Hit. Of course, it would be a close fight, but Hit would have been tired from fighting against Piccolo, leaving Goku, leaving Zamasu looking at Vegeta, and instead taking his body into the Zamasu arc. So we have Vegeta Black. Vegeta Black and Zamasu would terrorize Trunks' timeline, but because Goku, Piccolo, Gohan, and Vegeta are way more powerful in this timeline, they would be able to handle and defeat Vegeta Black sooner rather than later, using Force Spirit Vision, the first steps of Ultra Ego, and even Ultra Instinct. The future Zamasu would come in, and they'd be wondering why they can't defeat him, because he's immortal. He will tell them, because he's so cocky. So leaving Piccolo just thinking, restrain him and use Force Spirit Vision until we can figure out a way to seal him away. So Goku learns the Mafuba while they're holding him off, and then they seal away future Zamasu, leaving the Zamasu arc cleared easily. Then we go to like the Universal like tournament, and because they have Orange Piccolo, like they would have Beast Gohan at this point, because Gohan would unlock his power, seeing that he's falling behind. Ultra Ego Vegeta and Ultra Instinct and a Limit Breaker Goku, they'd be able to watch the Universal tournament so much easier. And because Kaba never learned Super Saiyan, Caulifla and Kale never learned it either, leaving their universe way weaker, and defeating Jiren, erasing everybody and then saving everybody by wishing them back. Now, they didn't have the androids, so they just got like Yamcha and like Yamcha, Tien, Krillin, like maybe they got like Majin Buu, who wasn't asleep. Of course, if it got Hercule, he would have like just soloed the entire tournament himself, but that'd be like the entirety of the tournament. So Krillin is alone in this timeline. Maybe he finds Marin or whatever. Now we get into like the next arcs, like Granola. Like Granola arc would not happen because Granola, like in different orders, like Granola would not happen because there's no Frieza. He's gone. They wouldn't need him for the tournament. Then you have like Moral arc before then, which would be easier taken down because there's more people with Force Spirit Vision, so Moral can't absorb power, and he'd be defeated much sooner thanks to like all the people with teleportation. Like Piccolo, Gohan would just be absorbing his power and just dealing with that. Even if like his android just copies their abilities, it wouldn't do anything because they would just absorb the power back. So it'd be like a standstill. Vegeta would be learning these powers finally because he's like so far behind. But thanks to like early Ultra Ego, he would have like done way more damage to Moral, while Ultra Instinct Goku would just defeat him. We get into like the Broly arc, and there's no Broly arc. Like maybe they would find him one day, but he'd just be stuck on the planet because Frieza soldiers would be looking and thinking the Frieza soldiers want like one more attack on Earth. They'd send Broly down there. But because Vegeta is like way more powerful in this timeline, same with Goku, and then Piccolo was in the area, they would handle like Broly with ease. Now, would Paragus lose his life? I would say no. He would they would tell him how bad of a father he is, and like for Broly to like learn how to like control his power, leaving him to Beerus. Now, superhero, this would be so much easier handled because Gohan and Piccolo are already super powerful. So even if the Gammas were adjusted to that power level, same with like Goku and Vegeta's mastered blue level, they would still defeat him because Orange Piccolo already one-shot that power, meaning that this Piccolo will be way more powerful. Now it's like I would like to add a bonus with like GT. GT would be so much easier to handle. Even if like Goku becomes like a kid, like Gohan and Piccolo are like able to teleport and go around the universe as well to gather the Dragon Balls. They would simply just need like the Dragon Radar, talk to King Kai. They would be able to gather the shadow like the Black Star's Dragon Balls. Super 17 would never be a thing because like 17 was already destroyed, and since he wasn't as bad of a person this timeline, I wouldn't feel he'd go to the underworld. He would just be like in like heaven, or at least like somewhere in between, so they wouldn't be able to get to him. So that arc wouldn't happen. The baby arc would be interesting, but because they have Force Spirit Vision, the moment someone gets taken over, be it like Goten or anybody, they just rip out the baby side and destroy him instantly. So we go into like the Shadow Dragon arc, and the many of the Shadow Dragons are like the darkness incarnate. So like but with Goku, Vegeta, like Gohan and Piccolo being way more powerful, they are able to handle them, and then eventually into Shenron. Goku wouldn't need to like ascend past his his mortal self because he's already like so powerful. And Ultra Instinct, he'd have God Ki. Super Saiyan 4, he had that early, so unlocking it again to break the wish would only be easier. So eventually, like once the Black Star Dragon Balls are defeated, they would use the Namek Dragon Balls to bring Goku back to normal, defeating like everything. And that would be finishing this what if. Like, what if Goku trained on Yardrat with Piccolo and Gohan? So a lot of things would go a lot easier. Cell Saga would be taken care of way easier, and the cast would just be more powerful. Despite Krillin would be alone, the androids would be destroyed because they wouldn't need to deal with that. Vegeta would always be behind until he learned Ultra Ego and would be on his way, and then train on Yardrat to finally be their equal. It's a very short what like one shot what if, but it was always a fun idea I wanted to have, like because Goku could have trained with like Piccolo and Gohan on Yardrat for those years, and they would have been like way more powerful. Thanks for listening.